Okay, so let's push this up a little bit to the level of the government and government agencies like the Bank of Agriculture, the Bank of Industry, and the new Development Bank of Nigeria. What's your take about how government is coming in through with this, of course, with some interventions from the central bank in the Anchor Borrowers Program, for example? Do you think all these are beginning to move the needle in the right direction?
Yes, definitely that is happening. The government is doing a lot to promote agricultural development in the country. And in fact, as I see it now, much of the problem is on the demand side. In other words, the government programs are out there for people to take advantage of, but not enough people are taking advantage of these programs. People do not understand the programs well enough. And there are some challenges when it comes to all the paperwork that is required to access these programs, which is leading to a slow uptake in these programs. But I would like to reiterate again that a lot more needs to be done by private business and private funding in this regard, because there's only so much government can do. All of this government intervention is because the private sector is not doing what it ought to do.
Well, so some folks got together over the last couple of days in London for an agri in West Africa to discuss what's the views from the outside. We're looking at any help, not just from financial institutions, but from private sector agri organizations that would make some critical interventions on what is going on the African continent.
Yes, there is a lot of interest in African agriculture, and it's easy to understand why this interest is there. Africa by itself has the capacity when it comes to the amount of arable land we have to feed the rest of the world, including Africa. Therefore, it's an irony that Africa is importing so much food into the continent. So investors recognize this. They want to play in the agri space in Africa. But the challenge they're having is that they are not really seeing enough of the kind of big ticket transactions that should attract them. I would like to delve a little bit into this so that we understand why the numbers are important. If a fund, say in Europe, has $300 million for investment, and you come to that fund and you are looking for a $50,000 investment, how much are they going to require to monitor that investment? Perhaps they will need up to $100,000 to monitor that investment if the investment, for instance, is over a 5 to 10 year period. That's why the big numbers are important. Therefore, I see the need for businessmen in the agri-space to come together to put large projects together that will benefit farmers across the country, and more importantly, benefit consumers. Right now, the cost of food in Nigeria is too high, and this is linked to the cost of production. The cost of production of rice, for instance, in Nigeria is too high. That is why somebody will plant rice in Thailand or India, put it in a ship, pay for the shipping, come to Nigeria, pay 70% duty, and still be able to deliver that rice at about the same price as the rice that is produced right here in Nigeria. So we have to be a lot more competitive as a continent and as a country when it comes to the quality of our produce and the cost of our produce. And to be competitive, scale is very important. That's why our projects should all be looking at the right scale. And scale doesn't mean leaving out the smallholders. Our business strategy, for instance, is all centered around supporting smallholders, yet it's quite at large scale. So these are the kind of things that we need to be looking at. If you are thinking small, stop thinking small. Start thinking big, because as much as you as an entrepreneur has the challenge of looking for funding to support your project, there are other people who have a different type of problem. Their problem is that they have the money. The money is sitting in low interest countries, and some countries even have negative interest rates. So they want to put the money to work in places where the interest rate is relatively higher. Some of them are not even thinking only about the return on investment. They are also thinking about the social impact that the investments will make right here in Africa. There's also the issue of the large-scale migration out of Africa. A lot of people are leaving this continent because of hardship.
Demary, I've got one question very quickly to wrap up this conversation. Thank you very much. One question for just about 1 minute. Part of what you do, and you explained in agriculture, but if you look at Nigeria, for example, organizations such as yours, Alluvial, is doing a bit more in the Niger Delta, whereas the northern part of the country is considered to be more agriculture friendly. Why is that so?
This is actually a misperception. Take rice, for instance. In the Niger Delta, you can grow rice for 2 full seasons without irrigation. This is because the rainy season is 8 to 9 months long. The problem of underinvestment in agriculture in the Niger Delta is because people are not setting their sights at the correct things. We need to diversify our sources of revenue, enough of the dependence on oil and its ancillary businesses in the Niger Delta. We need to focus in agriculture, otherwise the rest of the country will leave us behind. Recently, there was a DFID study that indicated that 72% of all of the rice produced in Nigeria comes from only 7 states in the northwest of the country. So what's happening here is that the country is depending too much on 7 states in the country, and the rest of the country needs to step forward to do our own fair share of supporting food security in the country. As it stands now, so many parts of this country are food insecure.
I think we need to leave it there for today. Thank you very much for your time. The CEO of Alluvial Agriculture, Demary Von Kemedi, out of Abuja studios. But of course, we got another very big conversation about developing Nigeria. We're having a one-on-one with the CEO of the Development Bank of Nigeria. He's the new kid on the block. Let's have this conversation when we come back.